I think we're lost. I edged the car along looking for Rosebud Lane, but all I saw were rows and rows of the same cookie-cutter suburban house, crammed in next to each other, going on forever. Sighing, I pulled over at the curb. Can you check the GPS? Sure. As he pulled out his phone, I stared out the windshield. Even though it was a sunny, beautiful day, the neighborhood was a ghost town. Nobody walking their dog on the sidewalk. No kids playing in the street. I glanced around at the houses, and though it was hard to tell from the reflections on the windows, it looked like the curtains were drawn. Dave sighed next to me. I don't think it's right. What do you mean? He handed me the phone. The app showed our location, in the middle of the woods. I zoomed out a bit, but no suburb showed up. Whoa, that's weird. I pulled out my phone, but the same thing happened. Little blue dot in the middle of the woods. The closest road was the 2-lane highway we'd pulled off of. Guess this is a really new development. Google Maps was almost always accurate, but if the houses had just been built, maybe the software hadn't caught up yet. They certainly looked very new. Overlapping gables, big windows with no shutters, all neutral colors. The grass perfect without muddy tracks from dogs or kids. The white siding so crisp and pristine it almost glowed. The windows shiny as a mirror. I hated that sterile, almost uncanny look of new houses, like they'd just been copied and pasted out of a video game and plopped down in the earth. No personal touches, no wear and tear, no character. Just sterile and empty and perfect. Maybe you should call Megan, I said. Dave glanced at the clock. I don't want to interrupt the shower. Yeah, but we're lost, and the GPS isn't working, he sighed. If we don't find it in 10 minutes, I'll call her. That was Dave for you, always thinking of others. Which was nice, of course, until it got to these kinds of things. He'd rather waste our time driving around aimlessly than give Megan a quick call for fear of being rude. It was always like that with him. But whatever. They say pick your fights, and this wasn't important enough to go to battle over. I continued crawling down the street, past more and more identical houses. But just as I was thinking maybe I should force him to call Megan, that this was a fight worth choosing, I saw it. A turn up ahead. I sped towards the intersection, hoping the little green sign said Rosebud Lane. But as we got closer, my stomach dropped. What the hell? It was blank. It was just a green rectangle of metal, no text on it whatsoever. Wow, someone effed up, Dave laughed. They had one job. Do you think I should turn? Wait, let me pull up the GPS. The car idled on the corner as I waited for Dave to pull out his phone. Nah, still in the woods. I guess turn on it, yeah. I flicked on my blinker and turned onto the unnamed street. More cookie-cutter houses with curtained windows, all painted a perfectly neutral beige with white trim. Even the front lawns looked identical. 3 shrubs along the porch, and a big hydrangea on the garage end. There were no cars in any driveways either, just like the previous street. I wonder if they're so new, some of them haven't even been moved into, just standing empty. For some reason, the thought sent a chill down my spine. How weird would it be to live in this neighborhood surrounded by empty houses? I'd hate to live here, I muttered. It'd be nice to have something brand new though. Not having everything break all the time, he said. But every single house looks exactly the same. I shook my head. I bet they have a super strict HOA. Probably, he said. We continued up the road. It seemed like the houses stretched into infinity, disappearing into the light fog. What was it again? Number 52? Yep. I slowed the car, looking for mailboxes, so I could check the house numbers. But the houses didn't have mailboxes. I guess they must have one of those communal ones, I thought, like apartments and townhouses have. But the houses didn't have numbers on the front doors, or the porches either. So weird. We continued driving, but I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. Identical houses, extending to infinity. Like someone had just copy-pasted them on a computer screen. I let out a sigh and stared out at the road, looking for signs of life, individuality, anything. And then finally, through the gloom and mist, I saw a smudge of color, a stop sign. Oh, good, we'll see what street we're on, I said. But as we approached, my stomach twisted. My heart pounded in my chest. There wasn't an intersection, or even a crosswalk. There was no actual reason for cars to stop. Yet, the stop sign was still there. And there was another one, on the other side of the road, telling cars in the oncoming direction to stop too. There's no reason for a stop sign to be here, I said. Maybe it's like an accessibility thing? Like the person who owns that house is blind? So everyone needs to stop here so they don't hit them? He said. Does that kind of thing even exist? I mean, great if it does, but I've never seen that. He shrugged. I think we should turn around. Let's just continue a little bit, Dave replied. In like 5 minutes, if we don't find it, we'll turn around. I don't know why I listened to him. I guess it's because, logically, I knew there wasn't much risk to driving around some weird neighborhood. It wasn't like we were wandering around in the middle of the woods, where we could get lost or die of dehydration or get eaten by a bear. It was 1 p.m. in the afternoon, and we were driving down a suburban road. But the instinctual part of myself, the part that evolved over hundreds of thousands of years, that prevented humans from going extinct long ago, was screaming. There is something wrong here. Get out. Get out now. I drove forward, glancing in the rearview mirror. The stop sign lingered there, its bright red almost unnatural against the gray gloom of the sky. Over the next few minutes, we didn't get any closer to finding Megan's house. There were no street signs, no mailboxes, no indication of where we were going. Even the car's compass seemed messed up, as it switched from north to west a few times, even though we appeared to be going in a straight line. I finally pulled over to the side of the road and pulled out my phone. I'm just going to call Megan, Dave said finally, breaking the silence. Thank you, I snapped back, unable to keep the annoyance out of my voice. After a moment, Dave shook his head, not picking up. All right, let's just go home. But we told her we'd be there. I sighed and stared at him. Okay, so what do you want me to do? We're lost. GPS isn't working and she isn't picking up. He paused, glancing around. Maybe we should ask somebody. Who? There's no one here. Maybe knock on a door? My eyes widened. That's weird. Look, let's just knock on a door and ask. If they don't answer, we'll give up and go home. I puffed out a breath. Fine. I pulled over to the curb. We got out and started up the driveway. It was no longer bright and sunny. The sky was a uniform, overcast gray, and the place was so quiet. No voices, no cars passing by, no dogs barking. Just our footsteps on the pavement. We walked up to the front door. When I didn't see a doorbell, I raised a fist to knock. No footsteps or barking from inside. I don't think anyone's home, I told Dave. Just wait for a second. The address is definitely 52 Rosebud Lane, right? I'm like 99% positive, but I'll check. Dave pulled out his phone and scrolled. Yep. A minute went by. I knocked one more time. Then I leaned over and peered through one of the windows next to the door. Wait, what? The layout of the house was really weird. The staircase was plopped in the middle of the foyer with empty space on either side. Beyond it, in the kitchen, there was a floor-to-ceiling tower of cabinets, not connected to a counter or anything, just there. There was a painting on the wall of a woman standing on a rainy city street, but her eyes were drawn in upside down. What the hell? It felt like I was looking at an AI-generated image, something made by a machine trying to replicate what a house was supposed to look like inside, without any understanding of the function of stairs or cabinets or human behavior at all. Look, I said, motioning Dave over, but he didn't share my sense of unease. Instead, he laughed. Wow, whoever designed these houses was an idiot, he whispered. Can we go now? Yeah, okay. We headed back towards the car. As I walked around to the driver's side, though, I felt the hairs on the back of my neck prickle, the familiar feeling of being watched. I whipped around, but all I saw was the row of beige houses staring down at me with their dark, shiny windows. We should be there by now. You must have just passed it up, Dave replied. No, we didn't. It was almost 2 p.m. now. My stomach grumbled. My shoulders hurt. I just wanted to be back home, curled up under a blanket, watching YouTube, drinking tea. We only made one turn, but somehow retracing our steps, we hadn't intersected it yet. We hadn't even passed the weird stop sign. Nothing looked familiar, although of course everything looked familiar because all the houses were the same house. It must just be up a little further. I just want to be home, I whined. But a few minutes later, we passed something that we definitely didn't see on the way in. A house that was different. It was on the left side of the road. Everything about it was identical to the other houses, except for the porch railing. It was installed upside down, bolted into the underside of the roof, the banister at eye level. "What the hell?" I asked, slowing down the car. We both stared at the house. No builder or designer would make that kind of mistake, would they? A few houses down, there was another house that was different, this time on the right. 2 of the windows had been connected into one long 15-foot-tall window that extended from the ground to the roof. "What the fuck?" Dave whispered. "This isn't right," I replied, my heart pounding in my chest. And then I saw it. Just a few houses ahead of us was a mailbox. The only mailbox I'd seen on the street, and in small gold lettering were the words, 52 Rosebud Lane. Attached to the mailbox was a single pink balloon fluttering in the wind. No, there's no way, it doesn't make sense. There were no cars parked on the road, no voices or music coming from inside, no indication that there was a party going on except for that one balloon. "I'm calling Megan." The phone trilled in his ear, and then she picked up. "Dave, where are you guys?" "We're a little lost. We're in this development and..." He paused. "Do you have a pink balloon on the mailbox?" "No," she said, confused. "It's the blue house on the hill, at the end of the cul-de-sac. Did you turn on Mountain Avenue? It's a little hard to get here." She continued on, but I wasn't listening. I was staring at the house, specifically at the upstairs window, where a figure stood in the darkness, watching us. I started the car and made a U-turn, tires screeching against the pavement. Dave turned to me, eyes wide. "Someone's watching us. From that house." I stomped on the accelerator, the car rocketing down the suburban road. "Slow down," Dave shouted. I glanced down. I was going 40. "We can't. We have to get out of here." "You're going to crash, damn it. Slow down." But I did have to slow down, because up ahead, materializing out of the fog, was a stop sign. This time, a crosswalk, and a cluster of school children crossing the road. I stomped on the brakes. The car screeched to a halt. Dave and I jerked forward, the seatbelts locking us into place. My heart pounded in my chest. Then I looked up, and all the muscles in my body froze. It wasn't a group of school children. It was an amalgamation of arms and legs, backpacks and sneakers, tousled hair and ponytails, put together like some nightmarish jigsaw puzzle. No faces, no eyes, just things that gave the illusion of a normal group of children crossing the street. I stared at the monstrosity 20 feet in front of us, partially veiled by fog. And then I switched the car into reverse. "Call 911, I screamed at Dave. "Now!" We careened past the upside-down railing, the 15-foot window, the pink balloon. As we sped by, the houses got stranger and stranger. Chimneys leading up to the sky, floating gables, hardwood floors that spilled out into the grass. "They say they can't trace our location," Dave shouted. "Then, I don't know, tell them to go on the highway, Route 140, turn at Glenmont Road, and then make a right at the subdivision." He relayed that to them, but my heart was pounding. If we hadn't been able to retrace our steps, if they couldn't track our location, how would they find us? I slowed down slightly, glancing around the street looking for something, anything that I recognized. But all I saw were the windows, the curtains wide open in every single one, and people staring down at us. Although people was a stretch, everything about them was wrong. Their faces had all the wrong proportions, stretched and misshapen. Their eyes were set in upside down. They had far too many hands. People that looked like they had been crafted by some horrible AI, just like the houses they lived in. It's now almost 10 p.m. The sky should be dark, but it isn't. It's the same overcast gray color. We've made so many U-turns, I've lost count. Back and forth, but it's never the same. The houses, the people, are always different. Like the world is generating just for us each time we drive down it, popping in and out of existence. The police called us. They tried locating us again and again, but every time they failed. They insisted there were only acres and acres of forest where we described our location. I've used my phone to try to get other help. My parents tried to find us too. Nothing has worked. I only have 10% battery left. So I'm posting this online in the hopes that maybe someone, somewhere, knows how to escape this place. Maybe we'll finally get out. I'm so hungry. I'm so tired. All I want to do is stop the car and lie back in my seat, drift off to sleep. But I'm afraid if I do that, they'll get us. The not people in the houses, they're learning. With each hour, they look more human, more like us. And they're getting bolder. I see children standing on the front lawn, still as statues. Women standing on the sidewalk with faces that almost pass for human. Men crossing the street in front of us. Whenever we drive by, they all start moving in our direction. Like we're magnetic, a homing beacon. Dave is driving now so I can post this. Maybe I'll take a short nap. For a brief moment, I won't be trapped anymore. I'll dream of being home, curled up with a cup of tea, watching TV with Dave. I'll escape this place, if only for an hour. I'm signing off now. Hopefully someone out there, somewhere, knows how we can escape. And if not, I'll have my dreams to comfort me for a little while. A liminal space can be defined as the physical spaces between one destination and the next. Different for us all, but always vaguely familiar. Familiar, yet foreign. They are the bridges between the world that we know and the planes beyond and between. An airport after dark, perhaps. Picture it in your mind's eye. The escalators have been switched off and the restaurants are shuttered away. Your footsteps make gentle clacks against the cold ground as you walk. Soft lights blink in the distance, and beyond the thick glass of the wide windows is nothing. Only black. Consider an arcade, glistening in the gloom. The colors of the games flash bright, but you do not recognize a single one. There are no people and there is no sound. There are no windows here either, not this time. No doors. Only simply patterned wallpaper and their endless labyrinth walls. Step into your school in the shadows of night. The corridors are empty, and they are longer than you remember them being. The layout is not quite right, you realize. There are staircases in places there shouldn't be. The electrics are all turned off, but there's an impossible level of light that hangs thick and heavy in the air all the same. They number in their thousands, these places, and they are the gateways. I am sure of this now. We've all seen them. We've passed them by. We've tightrope walked the threshold in our dreams, the backward shadows, the other sides, and the twisted lines that run between the gaps. There is one in particular that always rests in the back of my own mind. It comes to me in my dreams, this space. I think on it between the findings, in my obsessive explorations, my research. It comes to me, bizarrely, as a gift shop. The dreams vary little. I am always a child again as I wander the gift shop's aisles, wide-eyed and staring. The shelves tower up through the artificial light to an indiscernible ceiling above. They stretch out far in all directions. They are full of toys from my childhood, things I wanted but could either never afford or could never find. Some of these objects around me do not actually exist. When I wake, I struggle to remember precisely what they were, only that they were precious, mystical even. And there is never enough time to see it all. And of course, I can never take anything back with me. I never see doors for an exit, or an entrance for that matter. But I know that there is one. I know it inherently. This place exists somewhere, I am sure of it. and a part of me will always long to know where it would lead were I to pass through its elusive exit doors. I rub a hand across my forehead as the winds blow cold across the evening fields. Clouds rumble softly overhead. They gather in the sky, as they do in my mind, and I look to her, to Evangeline. There were lots of us at the beginning, and now there is only her and I. I love you, she says. I love you too, I reply. Everything's going to be okay, she says as I hold her in my hands. Her smile dances in her eyes, and I return a quick, sad smile of my own. Sure, I say, as the wind shivers across my skin. The field we find ourselves in now is one of many. The wheat comes up to my knees and stretches out far in most directions. In the distance to our left is a line of shadowed trees. Up ahead are a series of low hills, rising steadily to mountains as they grow. This is where we're going now. If I can summon the will to keep on walking. If I can just summon the will to keep on going, not just yet. Just a minute or two, I just need a minute. I sit down with Evangeline amongst the wheat with a weary sigh. Do you remember? I begin softly, reminiscing for its own sake, when we first set out on our own and away from the group. We were only taking a detour, just a quick change of plans. But it took us a whole week to find them again, do you remember? She grins at me, and I keep talking. The night we found our first liminal space as a duo, and the monster inside. I can picture it as clearly as if it were yesterday, readers. Allow me, if you would, to try and paint it for you with words, and please, forgive my disjointed narrative. It flows as the thoughts come to me. I can only apologize. So picture this place, reader, and picture it well. A McDonald's restaurant, long abandoned, sits alone out there in the desert. It squats in an ever-present sickly warmth, and the road is empty of cars as we approach. Evangeline and I. Our team is, for now, scattered, and they are not central to this story. I carry with me a journal of my interactions with the people and places, monsters and mayhem of the liminal spaces we have found so far. They are pieces of a much larger and much greater puzzle, and our work continues. The trail has led us here to the outskirts of civilization. I'm not sure about this, Evangeline mutters in a low voice upon our approach. This one feels different to the others. It is, I reply, my dusty coat blowing out behind us as we walk. This one wants to be found. Can you sense it? Yes, she says after a beat. I can. She laughs nervously, and I don't like it. We've got this, I say as I nudge her shoulder. We approach the dark and empty restaurant. Graffiti, more artistic than most, has been painted in black and white on the wall by the door. It depicts a crying young boy trapped in a cage, and I grimace with unease. Come on, Evangeline whispers as she turns to me. I thought you were the one supposed to be encouraging me. I nod with a half smile. Same procedure as always. Don't look through the windows once we're inside. Don't break the spell, I finish, and she grabs my hand. I squeeze it tight, then lead the way, pushing through the doors and stepping into the restaurant's deserted, gloomy lobby. The walls are decorated with McDonald's cartoon characters from the early 2000s. The ones they don't really use anymore. In a corner stands a video game. Controllers plugged and fixed into long dead screens embedded in the wall. I'm careful not to look directly through any of the building's windows. For now, the desert outside is invisible. We see only reflective darkness in the glass from the corners of our eyes. Evangeline steps to the right and examines the seating area. I head towards the counter, shining the beam of my electric torch over the cash registers, across the menus above my head. It doesn't take long before we find what we're looking for. It's here, Evangeline says from round the corner, and after a brief but sudden spike in nerves, I follow her voice to get a look at what she has found. Nothing particularly out of the ordinary so far. Physically, it's a simple staircase leading down into a basement. To further seating, perhaps. Bathrooms, employee-only areas, whatever. But we can both feel the energy from these stairs, rising up from beneath. I cannot tell if I detect a soft rumbling at the edge of my hearing, or if it's simply my imagination. "Here we go then," I mutter. I scratch at my jaw and step forwards and onto the stairs, steadily descending down into the darkness below. The level below is just as I expected. 3 doors for bathrooms and an employees-only storeroom. I would be inclined to try these doors if not for the fact that there is another set of stairs at the opposite end of this narrow corridor we find ourselves in. And this one does not look like it leads into further darkness at all. In fact, a faint but very visible light glows from the steps, and I realize that this is where we need to head. Not through any doors, not this time, but a little further down. So across the corridor we go, shoes tapping on the hardwood floor, and down the next set of stairs. The light gets brighter. "This is creepy as hell," Evangeline murmurs, clicking off the beam of her light as it is no longer needed. I do the same. It is not a welcoming light that we step into. No burst of daylight for the explorers freed from the cave, nor the first rays of morning. The light down here is clinical, fake and sickly. It creates a sense of timelessness and disorientation, and I blink a little as we arrive on the lowermost floor. The corridor is narrow and short. There is an open arch in the wall to our left, and an open arch in the wall to our right. Overhead, and, it would seem, in the rooms, the source of the light comes from faintly pulsing beams that run the lengths of the ceilings. The room to the left is a party room, of sorts. There are colorful tables and chairs, mostly in red and yellow, that match the walls, and the walls themselves are adorned with simple geometric patterns. It's the sort of place you could have a kids' party. Balloons litter the floor. "Whoa," Evangeline whispers aloud, and I turn to follow her gaze into the room on the right. "This'll be it then," I say under my breath, scanning a cautious eye across and over the scene ahead. It's less of a room, in truth, than a great and endless hall. The walls are impossibly far apart, and they extend far off into the distance. There is no hardwood floor here, only old, faded blue carpet. A children's play zone billows up from the ground maybe 30 or so meters ahead, and it's unlike anything I've ever seen. You know what I mean when I say play zone, don't you? An indoor play area. Your country probably has its own names for it. Slides, ball pits, colorful foam-padded tunnels and slides and climbable netting. But this thing that lies ahead is monstrous. There's no other word for it. As much as physically possible has been packed and crammed and twisted into the limited available space. Tunnels wind round the edges of the wall near the ceiling. Ball pits, the size of actual pools, or larger, stretch out into the shadows cast by the colorful pillars and interwoven passages. I cannot see the complex in its entirety and have no idea how far back it might go. It also gives off the impression that it extends up higher than the ceiling shows. Between the entrance to the complex and our current position by the door is very little. There are a smattering of tables and chairs, but not much else, and all of a sudden I feel incredibly small. This sense of smallness is bolstered by a new surety that these tables and chairs are larger than they should be. Impractically so, creating the illusion that we have lost size upon our arrival. Something clanks and whirs from the shadows of the complex, and the echo dances down the walls towards us. "This is one of the worst," Evangeline says. "This feeling, it isn't usually this bad, not so soon after arrival." "I know," I reply as I start walking the length of the room. "Do your best. We learn what we can and we get out. We'll log it and map it with the others." "Right," she says, and she falls in step alongside me. We pass by the tables and the oversized chairs, and the complex draws nearer. Nearer and nearer. There are several ways in, so to speak. Multiple colorful yet dark tunnels that lead away into the unknown. Round, twisted corners and past warped funhouse-style mirrors. We opt for the one directly ahead, and as we step foot over the threshold, the sound of the rumbling grows just a little louder, a little more present. We look at each other, Evangeline and I, then with hearts pounding we set on into the shadows of the complex to see what we can find. As we walk, we mark the foam-cladded pillars we pass with chalk crosses, quick scrawlings that will help us on our way back, should we need them. I don't fail to notice that Evangeline and I seem to be able to stroll the funhouse corridors with relative ease, despite the fact that by appearance it looks clearly designed for children and should really be a great deal smaller. We cross a faded foam bridge that spans a wide pool of colorful plastic balls, and as we do so, I struggle with the sensation that there is something down there, something lurking beneath us in the shadows, unseen and watching, waiting perhaps. I wonder idly how deep down the pool goes, how many thousands of colorful balls there are between the bridge and the bottom. A twisted thought creeps unwanted into my head, that the balls never end, or perhaps that they eventually give way to some icy, dark, and unforgiving water below, an abyss hidden beneath the plastic. I shiver with secondhand cold and press on, checking on Evangeline with a quick glance. Tunnels wind off to our left and right as we make our way deeper into the complex. We ascend up a series of foam steps to a level above and push past great sweeps of climbable netting. Less light reaches us in here, and Evangeline switches on her torch. I make the decision to keep mine off for now. We ascend another level and look out over a gap in the platforms ahead. The pillars and bridges and tunnels give way to reveal a series of slides, some red, some yellow, and one blue, tunnels full of hungry darkness. Evangeline casts her light across the nearest one and tries to use the beam to follow the tunnel's spiraling path down through the netting and various apparatus of the complex. I adjust the collar of my shirt. The sense of claustrophobia grows stronger as we head further inside, and whilst you might think that we are mad for what we are doing, reader, you must understand. You must understand the desperate need to know. To find out once and for all what it is that connects these impossible places. For there must be something. There must be. They are all unique in their own bizarre and curious ways. But the similarities and general rules are too close for coincidence. We are all explorers at heart. And once you've explored your first true liminal space, the need to know how and the need to know why do nothing but grow stronger and stronger and stronger. The blue one doesn't go anywhere, Evangeline mutters. I follow the beam of her light with my eyes. What do you mean? I ask. I can tell where the red and the yellow slides go, roughly. 2 of them finish in the ball pit down there. 2 of them wind around and head off into the shadows on the other side. But the blue one, you see? It gets lost in the pillars and the tunnel just disappears. It doesn't lead to anywhere at all. It'll lead to somewhere, I think, just perhaps not somewhere we can understand. We both swivel on the spot to the sudden sound of children's laughter. Hello, I call out at once. Who's there? But the echoey laughter from the gloom only shivers around and around. Evangeline, it's a trick, it must be. Something is creating an auditory... I cut myself off mid-sentence as I turn and realize that Evangeline has gone. She has vanished. No, I shout out, turning this way and that. Evangeline! Something rumbles in the darkness. The foam and the padding becomes warmer. I can feel the heat radiating off of them as I stumble around the edge of a corner and race across a narrow bridge, one that travels high above the sinister ball pit far below. She can't have gone far. She can't have gone far. A bubble of panic rises up my spine as I consider the blue slide, the slide that leads to nowhere. She wouldn't, would she? Go down? No, she'd never. Up ahead is another great slide. Not a tunnel though, this one. Far wider too. It starts on the level above and drops down into darkness. Down, 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 far below the floor of the complex should go. I realize I have no true way of knowing how massive this place might be, how high up it climbs, and how deep down it descends. The slide is slick and shiny, red like a great yawning tongue, and even as I think this, the slide curls in at its edges as if it were made of water. The foam-clad posts and pillars of the complex around the slide contort, and isolated yet burning yellow lights shine down at me through the netting from the faraway shadows.
Come and play, lonely wanderer,
it says to me, in a voice like the rumbling drawl of a nightmare. I freeze, every muscle at once tensed with utter horror.
Where will this dream take you?
It asks as my mouth drains dry.
You struggle to remember, but you have not forgotten entirely.
I cannot look away. I cannot run.
I have always been there for you, and you have found me.
Evangeline. Evangeline is out here somewhere. I tear away my gaze and turn from the mouth of the monster. I push its words from my head before they have a chance to sink into my conscious. Evangeline, I call out, please. Evangeline told me later what it was that had happened. She hadn't taken the blue slide, but she had heard something that I did not. Behind the laughter and the whispery giggles of the children in the darkness, she heard a sobbing, a plea for help from the very same source of the laughter. She saw a shadow at the end of a corridor reaching out for her, and she made the gamble to go after it. She called out to me, she said, told me to follow. But for one reason or another, I did not hear her. A trick of the complex, perhaps, or maybe even a dangerous preoccupation of my own mind. But she raced down that corridor and rounded the corner, up another quick series of colorful foam-padded steps, and there in a small, soft-walled room, she found no laughing children, only terrified ones. 2 girls and a boy, huddled together in the corner, dark shadows beneath their eyes and shaking in fear. The only decoration in the little room was a clear plastic half-bubble built into the wall, a window of sorts to the view beyond. A quick glance through it revealed its view, a veritable sea of ball pit balls way below, softly churning and frothing like waves against the pillars of the complex, disappearing away into gradual darkness. It's okay, Evangeline said to them, holding out her hand. We're going to get out. You can be safe again, I promise. I wanted to play, the boy whispers. I wanted to stay forever. He starts to cry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It's okay, Evangeline replies, a lump rising in her throat. It's okay, but take my hand, all right? We're going to get out. And so he does. The girls grab hold of Evangeline's shirt. They stick as close to her as they can as she retraces her steps. The complex, to her dismay, has changed. The corridors are not as they were. But the chalk markings are still quite visible, even if their locations have changed. She follows them back, and that's where she finds me, calling out for her in the chaos. I stare at the children, but she only races right past. Come on, she shouts, following the little marks of chalk on her return. Right, I reply, sprinting ahead and rounding the corner to face the mouth of the beast. It rumbles hungrily from the shadows into which the great slide slopes down.
You are children of mine. You will always be, and you do not wish to leave.
The words race round and round the walls like a wind as Evangeline staggers to a stop, staring wide-eyed at the monster with the children in tow. Go, I shout to her, grabbing her shoulder. Don't let its words into your head. I turn back to the monster. You are weak, I tell it with an accusatory finger, hand shaking. Can't even keep a grip on a group of children.
You are never truly free. You will always remember me and long for me wherever you go.
Evangeline and the 3 children disappear from sight. I struggle with my fears, but do my best to hold the attention of the monster for just another moment longer. What are you? I whisper.
You know what I am.
And with effort, I turn my back on it and flee for my life through the complex, through the beating walls of the monster, following the markings of chalk round corner after corner and down step after step. The level of light changes as I run, and I can see it. I can see the way out, back towards the hall with its primary colors and oversized tables and chairs. Evangeline is ahead with the children. She is safe. And as I reach the edge of the complex, something brings me to a gentle stop. I pause, chest rising and falling, and turn to look back at the world within, at the colorful shadows, thinking, considering.
Answers lie at my center,
the complex murmurs to me as the world slows down all around.
I can tell you, explorer, where to find the gift shop.
My heart rate quickens. My dream.
I know what it means and I know where it leads.
It whispers. It tempts. And I consider returning. Only briefly, I swear, but I consider what would happen were I to go back into the complex for just a little longer. It's not until I feel Evangeline's grip on my arm that I turn in bewilderment. She stares into my eyes and I know that I have to leave. So leave we do. Without turning back, we sprint the length of the hall with the children. We ascend the flights of stairs and through the abandoned McDonald's and out into the warmth of the desert night, panting and sweating. But damn, the outside air has never tasted so good. "You idiot!" Evangeline grunts once we've caught our breath, smacking me lightly across the arm. "What made you stop, huh?" "I don't know, Evangeline," I reply. I don't know. "I know," she says, folding her arms, still getting her breath back. "Answers. You would give everything up for the sake of your curiosity, and I get it, I really do. I'm here with you, aren't I? We're together, exploring all these awe-inspiring, all these terrifying places. But you can't let yourself get consumed. Not ever. Not ever." She looks up at me and puts her hands on my face as the children huddle close to her sides. "It'll be the end of us. You know that, don't you? So promise me you won't get consumed." I look down at her and cannot help a little laugh, even despite everything. She looks so serious. This makes her smile in turn and she shakes her head and gently pushes me. "I promise," I tell her with a smile, "and we'll always be together." I lift my head to look up at the desert, then close my eyes, allowing a deep breath in as the breeze blows pleasantly over my skin. "Now come on," I say with a grin. "Let's get these kids home, and we have to regroup with the others." And so we set off down the road, hands held, with the warmth of the night washing welcomingly over us all. "That was quite the adventure, wasn't it?" I say to Evangeline as the wind blows cold and bitter across the fields. The wheat all around me rustles violently in the breath of the impending storm, and the first raindrop falls from the swirling skies above. "Just you and me on the hunt through the liminal spaces," I chuckle, holding her a little tighter. "I love you," she says. "Do you remember that underground swimming pool? The one that just kept going and going? The water came up to our knees, but never any deeper. Everything's going to be okay," she says. Her smile dances in her eyes. "Do you remember that mountain?" I ask with increasing desperation. "The mountain we climbed all the way to the top. It moved and spoke like a living thing, ancient and powerful. You must remember, Evangeline. Please, just tell me you remember." She grins at me as raindrops fall thick and fast onto her face. And the recording ends. I wipe the screen and I tap play for the 100th time. The 1000th time, perhaps. Evangeline looks at me, at the camera. "I love you," she says. "I love you too," I whisper. "Everything's going to be okay," she says. Her smile dances in her eyes. To this I say nothing. I just wipe the screen of my phone for a second time and then slide it regretfully into my pocket. With a long and strained sigh, I rise, alone, to a stand. I open up my umbrella and lift it up and over my head as the downpour truly begins. I look to my left at the faraway tree line, dark and watching, and lightning strikes above it. I turn to my right, to the hills and the mountains. Something impossible lies behind them, and that is where my path now leads. I check that my logbook remains tucked away, safe and dry. It is my duty to report my findings, to share the stories of the travelers, of the explorers and the wanderers and the stumblers, of those who were changed, of the things that they found, of those who were lost and of those who never came back. This is my promise to you. I will find the answers, one way or another. And so I set out across the fields, through the rain, and into, as always, the unknown. Hello there, thank you for watching. So, how do you like this format, with two similar stories bundled together? Please let me know in the comments below. Also, I would like to thank my members. Thank you for your support. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay creepy and see you in the next video.